I'm sure you've already looked for a Harry Potter podcast everywhere. Who are you who's here to talk?
I don't know this part of the line. It was Kako who knew it. No.
Kako showed up today talking like this. I saw him tweeting, I forgot my hat. I said, man, no. This is going to be the second episode that comes out where you're not wearing your hat, right? People noticed you weren't wearing your hat, but that's how we record. By the way, I have a question for you.
Okay, you nearly made me choke when you said without a hat.
Hey, do you know why my diction's been worse lately?
Go on, ask your curious question.
My curious question is, when you decided to record with the hat for the first time, was that genuinely about your visual identity?
Your identity, or was it simply a day when you said, ah?
No, it was both things.
Really?
It was both things. Seriously, there was a day when I said it like this, I did it. It was kind of like a campaign. If the channel reached 100,000 subscribers by a certain date, I would wear the hat and keep it on. I would record all the videos until reaching 200,000. That's crazy. Then it reached 100,000, so I said, oh, well, I'll wear the hat. It's a promise. So I put it on and said, well, it's cool because this will create an identity, right? It does, yeah. People will start going like, oh, the guy with the hat. And it worked really well, yeah. So much so that, man, people really...
It was a great move.
People often say they don't recognize me without my hat.
Yeah, I've walked around with Kako at CCXP, and it's really a weird thing when you take off the hat and when you put it on. You can't walk around with Kako when he's not wearing it.
Yeah, I take off the hat, no. Who is that? You know, Space Jam, you're not the real whatever, you're not the...
Yeah.
Jordan? No, he's over there, it's the other player.
Yeah, which player is it? That's a great reference.
It's not Shaquille O'Neal, it's another one.
It's Charles Barkley.
Yeah, you're not Charles Barkley at all.
Your shot's all wrong, right? You're not Charles Barkley.
You're a cheap knockoff.
Wow, I love it. Man, I love these references. I love Space Jam. For me, it's the peak of no. He finishes there, then comes down to the baseball field. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Jordan. Wow, that's just too good.
Hey, enjoy it, guys. You see, Sessão Reservada always starts with the most random topics.
The randomness of a mind,
Yes, that's right. Today I'm in my mustard look since you all said you missed me. Where's your ketchup look? I thought we'd keep this joke going forever, but you only wore the shirt to record once, right? Just once?
Just once, man. But you know what? That shirt, I don't know. It looks like it shrank.
Really?
Uh-huh. It's because people mentioned the ketchup and mustard talking in the fridge. And I thought it was so clever that it became the most liked comment on our first episode. And you never wore the red shirt again, man. I always come here in yellow thinking
I'll see it any day now.
For a special episode, when some really cool news comes out from HBO, are we going to bring the meme back? Is that a deal?
It's a deal.
And don't forget the red shirt like you forgot the hat, okay? No.
I'm going to check out the dress now, right?
Guys, another episode of Sessão Reservada is starting now. And remember, for the shoutout segment, the QR code is on screen for you to send your message to us. And from... Message, right, guys? And at the end of every episode, we read your messages.
If you're listening to us on Spotify, leave a 5-star rating, stream the episode, download it to watch later, and leave a like here on YouTube if you're watching. We're going to discuss something really cool today.
Really cool. Harry Potter.
Damn, man. I bought an edition. I was going to say that I bought a really cool edition of the Chronicles of Narnia. A beautiful edition.
Oh, is it that single volume edition?
No, that's a different one. A new edition is out now. I had just the single one before, but now I bought one with all 7 books together.
But is it a box set?
It's not a box set, just one book, but it's a single volume edition.
You idiot. I just asked that single edition, which is all the books. No, it's not a single edition. No, it's just one book.
It's an edition. It's a single volume edition, but now there are 2 single volume editions, right? There's the one you're thinking of.
I know, the new HarperCollins one.
That one.
That's the one
All right. I just bought the Chronicles of Narnia and will start reading it soon.
Yeah, I really want to read it.
It's a franchise that because I read The Hunger Games. I really liked The Hunger Games back then, right? When the movies were coming out, I remember I read everything. The Lord of the Rings, I never had that. I really want to read it. I'm passionate about it. But I'm talking about books and adaptations because, guys, Today there's a very important question we're going to ask here, which is whether it's possible to know and understand Harry Potter just by watching the movies, right?
And the answer is short and to the point, no.
I think this is a topic that's going to bring a lot of discussion here today, even though the movie already has some very important points in the story that it explains poorly on its own. And we're going to address some topics that I think you especially feel are missing when you finish watching all 8 movies.
For example, people still believe today that Harry survived in that scene because he's the master of death. I've seen a lot of people commenting on that. Yes. So let's start from the beginning and talk first.
Let's start from the beginning. He brings up a fact from the last book. No, great.
I started right at the very end. But, so, what do you think about this subject? No.
I think, Manny, it's actually a really simple thing. You don't understand Harry Potter just by watching the movies. You understand the basics, like Harry is the boy who lived, he fights against Voldemort, and in the end, he defeats Voldemort. You don't understand the details of why things happen. That's an understanding that comes from those who read the books. Or obviously, if you haven't read them, you look things up and consume material beyond the movies.
You know that today, watching the movies, like all 8 of them, it leaves you with a feeling, in the end, a very positive feeling. I remember, Tiago, back in the day, when I watched it in the theater and everything, I would leave pretty upset, you know?
I would leave because I kept thinking that they left a lot of cool stuff out.
And then, when you start to reflect on it later, we have to analyze, out of those cool things, what actually added to the story, right? We have to be aware of that. We have to be aware of a good adaptation and also aware of things that really change the direction of what the author intended, right? Of what the author chose. There are simple changes, just with characters, I don't know, moving a character to a different house. It's not a change where someone who only watches the movies will be like, wow, I didn't understand the story. But there are other very important changes.
Yes, there are. I think that starting from Prisoner of Azkaban, the movies are already quite different from the books. And man, you see how interesting that is, right? Prisoner of Azkaban is considered by many to be the best movie, and it's already quite different from the book.
At the time, it wasn't seen as the best movie, since we experienced it and know the box office results.
It had the lowest box office of them all, man.
Not only was the box office the lowest, I remember that when I watched Prisoner of Azkaban, I said, wow, this doesn't feel like a Harry Potter movie anymore. I swear I thought that, because we were so used to the little uniforms, right?
The little scarf, their full outfit, that magical touch from Chris Columbus.
And then Azkaban came and changed a lot, but it didn't just change visually.
I think it changed the way they decided to adapt the books from then on, right? That's when the first serious cuts started to happen.
Yeah, indeed. And really at the time it wasn't, but today it's considered the best by most people. And there are a lot of differences, right? Yes, a lot of differences. I think the main point of our topic today is to bring up points, for example, that leave things open, you know? There are things left unexplained that if someone hasn't read the book, they won't know. They won't understand. We'll say they haven't read the book, but really they haven't seen what's in the original material regardless of how they consume it.
Yeah, we have to agree that there are people who don't like to read, okay? And there are people who consider themselves big fans of Harry Potter. And they've watched and rewatched the movies about 100 times.
And I think we're talking about 2 completely different things. You only understand part of the story. If you don't read, you don't consume the original material. Which are the books you don't have a complete understanding? Yes. Being a fan doesn't depend on understanding? Yes. I think being a fan, man, I hate it. I hate when someone says, oh, you're not a real fan of that thing. Oh, you haven't read Harry Potter. You're not a real fan. Oh, you don't know the character's voter registration number. You're not a real fan. Oh, come on. I think that's just stupid, you know? And I think it's stupid, like extremely stupid from both sides. From the one who says that if you don't know something, you're not a fan. or from the one who knows too much and says you're not a fan because you don't disagree with something, you know? So, like, I think labeling and measuring someone's level of being a fan is just stupid.
No, I've always thought that was stupid too.
Now, understanding the understanding, that's a fact. The understanding becomes fragmented if you don't consume the original content. Because there are things that are only in the book, right? And for example, you watch the movies. I'll give a really simple example. You mentioned Harry being the master of death. There's the example of the two-way mirror, where Harry just shows up with the mirror in Deathly Hallows, and that mirror, man, it's not just any ordinary thing. It's what sends Dobby to Malfoy Manor to get them out of there, to save them. And then Aberforth says, oh, I bought this from Mundungus, it belonged to Sirius. Yeah, Dumbledore said you wouldn't, Albus told me you wouldn't like it, but like, where did Harry get that from? Why does he have it? Do you get it?
The movies, man, sometimes you're just shocked at the level of like shamelessness they pull off. For me, another really, really cool example is in the Seven Potters, right? When we're introduced to Bill and also to Fleur. Like, oh, okay, he has orange hair. He must be from the Weasley family.
Bill Weasley, I owe this to a werewolf. The character is mentioned from the first book, but he actually appears starting in the fourth. Yeah, since the fourth, you know. He actually appears in the photo in the third one, right? But he doesn't physically appear until the fourth book. Really, if you don't read, you don't know that Bill already, you know, that we actually see his attack happening.
For example, yes, at the end of Half-Blood Prince, we even have a mini battle at Hogwarts there. Not on the same level, though, but there's a little battle that happens there after Dumbledore dies. And we see Bill being attacked, then Bill in the infirmary.
Molly Weasley finally understands that Fleur, with all the concern she shows for Bill, by the way she talks, even if he turns into a, you know? Yeah.
That's cool because in that part of the book, Lupin, like, there's the reveal about Tonks and Lupin, right? Because, like, in the book, actually, Harry thinks Tonks was all sad and everything because of Sirius's death, and she was, in a way, but he thought she was in love with Sirius, and she wasn't. That wasn't the case. It was because of Lupin. And then there's this reveal about Lupin, right, when Bill is all hurt, attacked by the werewolf in the infirmary. And then Fleur declares her love, right? She says, it doesn't matter how he's going to be. I'll take care of him. I love him, you know?
Because Mrs. Weasley had a certain issue with Fleur. She really did, right?
A lot of hostility. Mrs. Weasley, Ginny, Hermione, they were all being unfair to her, you know? Really unfair, I think. Like, it made no sense, you know? Yeah. But he was way too calm, right? Way too calm.
Man, and you mentioned the Half-Blood Prince. Like, at the beginning of the Half-Blood Prince, we have the whole thing about, okay, what happens after Sirius dies? Because Harry gets Sirius's things, including Grimmauld Place. He gets the Hippogriff. He, the creature. He inherits the house elf, creature. And we simply have Dumbledore having tea with the Dursley family there, which is amazing.
But I think that much more in this episode than the difference between the movie and the book. It's about seeing what really impacted the final understanding of the story. Because, for example, this thing with Bill, it develops the story more.
But it doesn't have an impact.
It doesn't affect the ending. I finished all 8 movies.
This is Ron's brother, okay?
You get it? So I think that's where we see a difference, right? Book and movie. But I think what's most complex about Harry Potter, across the 7 books, for me, is understanding things like Voldemort's motivation, okay? The motivation is why Voldemort is like that, okay? Why did Voldemort decide to go after Harry? Why is Harry the chosen one? You know, that kind of thing, I think for me, is the core, right? It's the heart of the Harry Potter series. Yes, yes, yes. Exactly about the prophecy, which is about the prophecy that Trelawney made back when she was interviewing for the job with Dumbledore. So, we don't have any of that in the movie. We don't. For me, it's a key part of the story. Far more important than Bill Weasley. Definitely. Showing Sibylla Trelawney making that prophecy back then, because she makes the prophecy there in Prisoner of Azkaban, right? And she transforms, goes into a trance, and we see that happening in Azkaban. But I think it's very important. We don't know that Snape hears the prophecy.
We know that it was Snape who told.
Man, we don't. People don't understand how complex and important this is. For Harry Potter, the fact that Snape was the one who gave that prophecy to Voldemort, and because of it, Voldemort went after the Potter family.
And that whole thing about romanticizing Snape. In the movies, it just seems like, in the movies, the only thing they talk about Snape is, right, his Death Eater side. It shows him there in Goblet of Fire in the pensive with Dumbledore saying Severus Snape was a Death Eater but switched sides before Voldemort's fall, becoming a spy and exposing himself to great danger. It's over. Look, Snape was a Death Eater.
Yeah, he shows it. He shows his mark there too.
What did he do as a Death Eater? Because a Death Eater doesn't go on a picnic in the park.
It's different from Draco Malfoy, who becomes a Death Eater, but it's more like a punishment from Voldemort.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Lucius couldn't steal, couldn't get the prophecy from the Department of Mysteries.
Exactly. And then we have this thing with Snape, right? All right. Then later we only find out in Snape's memories, Snape asking Dumbledore to protect Lily. Hide all of them.
My friend, they died because of you.
So, but like hiding, yeah, wait a minute. What you get when you're watching the movie if you don't know the story. Wow, he saw that things are going to get bad for Lillian and he's switching sides, asking to protect her because he's in love with her.
Damn, but the one who does it.
The one who causes this, you know?
I'm going to get it here. It's really cool. I'm going to get the prophecy, okay? To read it. Because I think it's really awesome because the movie leaves out part of the prophecy. So, I'm going to get the whole thing here.
I think let me see if I remember it by heart. The one with the power to defeat the Dark Lord will be born at the end of the 7th month. He will be born to those who have defied him 3 times.
Let me stay here.
First prophecy.
I can't. You can read. Read.
Oh, the one with the power to defeat the Dark Lord approaches.
Born to those who defied him 3 times, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have a power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives.
The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies.
And the prophecy could refer to Harry Potter or Neville.
And the movies, don't forget, they leave out Neville's part. They simply leave it out. In fact, I'm almost sure that in the movie they don't mention the part about being born at the end of the 7th month. They even shorten the prophecy.
They don't mention it. They don't mention that son, the one who defied 3 times. They don't mention it.
And so the prophecy was kind of, for me, a fundamental and central part of the Harry Potter story. But the movies treat it like just some glowing little ball. You know what I mean? Because it was so important for Lucius to get the prophecy, or even better, for Harry to get it. After the battle at the Department of Mysteries, we have an entire chapter with Dumbledore telling him everything, from Godric's Hollow, from the death of his parents, all the way up to that point, right?
Sit down. I need to tell you everything you should know. So you see Dumbledore telling Harry the whole prophecy. Yes, and you understand the importance that this prophecy had for the death of Harry's parents, and for the future of the wizarding world.
Yes, definitely. That's really missing. And it really is something that impacts the story. It directly impacts the story. Because in the movies, the prophecy really just seems like another magical artifact. And then there's also the moment when Harry finds out that Snape was the one who revealed the prophecy in Half-Blood Prince, and that's just simply cut out. Because that also impacts the story. So Harry's perception of Snape attacking Dumbledore, right? Yes, in that scene from Half-Blood Prince. Later we find out, right, that Snape was actually working for Dumbledore. But all of that builds the narrative, you know? Because I think that bringing it directly, of course, it shows Snape right there killing Dumbledore. Is it impactful? It's impactful in the movie. But throughout the book, it builds up Harry's suspicion. Man, that's the last straw for Harry to know that it was Snape who passed on the prophecy, who made Voldemort go after his parents. That's important. Damn. You get it? It's important. But I think besides those points, okay, I think it impacts us much more as fans who missed it. But I think that, yes, understanding the prophecy is important. Of course, very important. But I think he still manages to he kind of passes it off like, oh, the person didn't understand. But, okay, there's this prophecy talking about Voldemort and talking about Harry. Okay, it's a prophecy saying...
Dumbledore sums it up well when he tells Harry in the movie. So one will have to kill the other in the end? Yes, that's it.
But I think I think there's something else for me that the movies really fail at. That even gives, it even creates a plot hole in the other movies. It's the thing about the Marauders.
Yes.
In the movie, it doesn't say who Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are.
And what a mistake that was. It would have been so easy to fix, man. But then you don't realize that they were the Marauders. You don't realize that Lupin was Moony, James was Prongs, Sirius was Padfoot. The term Padfoot comes up several times throughout the story. In fact, it even appears in order of the
Harry talking, saying,
he's with Padfoot.
So how does Harry know exactly?
And Wormtail is Peter Pettigrew. So, there's a scene there that for me is one of the best scenes in the whole franchise, which is the Shrieking Shack scene, where we have some very talented actors. Damn, just to appreciate this scene, you know? Alan Rickman, Gary Oldman, David Thewlis, and Timothy Spall all interacting together.
The four giants.
Man, four giants of British cinema and theater. And then you have a beautiful scene, but at the same time, I think Quarren and the screenwriter, especially Steve Kloves, kind of left some of it unmentioned, you know? He wanted to leave it implied. Let's have Lupin close the Marauders map, right? It's sloppily done. Then the map closes along with his things at the time of his resignation. Oops, the map was his.
But it's very shallow, very shallow.
Yeah, and the movie is 2 hours long. Prisoner of Azkaban isn't the longest. Chamber of Secrets is 2 hours and 45 minutes. Do you know why Azkaban needs to be 2 hours and 14, 2 hours and 13? Why?
So they could explain, they needed to explain, because that's exactly how it happens in the other movies later on. What do you mean it's them, you know? All right, it might not be a big deal for people, right? Because maybe you who are watching or listening to this conversation, you're already a fan, you already know the story, but try to clear that from your mind. Yes, try to clear it. You don't know. Are you watching Harry Potter?
Harry Potter for the first time, yeah.
You don't know. You're seeing it for the first time. You have no idea. You see the map and there it is. Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. And then in the third movie, they just don't explain who they are. And then in another movie, it shows up saying, oh, they caught Padfoot. Then Pettigrew being called Wormtail. I mean, you need the other movie to understand what's in the previous movie, you know?
Prisoner of Azkaban features a great scene where Harry is in the hallway wearing a sweatshirt. And he sees Peter Pettigrew approaching on the map. Yes, and exactly at the moment Peter Pettigrew gets close to him, you can hear a rat scurrying.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well,
it's like this. There are details that are really, really cool that I think are great. But, in fact, Prisoner of Azkaban was where the fans who already knew the books came and said, well, it could have been better. And the Marauders are such beloved characters that I really miss them. I miss them because you learn more about their development and who they are. Because a lot of it, I watched all the movies, I understood. But a lot of Harry Potter's beauty is in the subtext too.
And now, moving on, going to Goblet of Fire, I think there's a cut that is crucial.
The first chapter.
No, besides the first chapter, there's a cut that's crucial, which is Barty Crouch Jr. explaining how he escaped from Azkaban and telling the whole plan right there, how they came up with it. So,
Barty Crouch Jr. taking part in the tournament.
Did you get it? Because, man, how did Voldemort find out about the tournament?
It was that journalist, Bertha Jorkins, wasn't it?
She wasn't a journalist.
She was from the Ministry of Magic. She was a journalist. She was.
That's right. So, about her kidnapping, did you understand how they planned it? Because Harry simply, his name is put in the goblet, he's participating, and then it turns out, Voldemort returned Moody. It was the fake Moody, I was the one who put it. Yeah, that's it. But how did it come to that?
Right. To make that happen, right?
They just don't mention it in the movie, you know? They just don't mention it. And then it makes it seem like, wow, everything is so simple. Voldemort just knows what's going to happen, you know?
If you ask a fan today who escaped from Azkaban first, they'll say it was Sirius Black, right? Exactly. Bartemius Crouch. And the whole thing about Bartemius Crouch escaping from Azkaban is really cool too. Yeah, his father put his wife there, right? Then they swapped the two of them using Polyjuice Potion, right? Yeah, and man, for everyone in the wizarding world, Bartemius Crouch Jr. was dead. He was dead. Damn, man. And that's what I say, the subtext. But Goblet of Fire has something that... Okay, now I want to ask you a question. That whole storyline with Winky, the house elf, do you really think the movies did well to cut her out? No.
I think you really miss it.
You think it's missing? Didn't you think it was well adapted?
No. I think it's missing.
A Ludo Bergman type of person. Okay.
I also think it's missing.
But are you speaking as a fan or as a casual viewer?
As a fan.
Okay.
As a fan,
It's missed. But for those who don't know Ludo Bergman,
he's not missed. But for those who don't know, it's like, how can you miss something you don't know?
Of course, that's a fact. But still, it's more a feeling of, I don't feel that.
So you're saying that's needed for the story to move forward? No, it's not. Yes, it's not missing. Nothing is missing for the story to progress, but as a detail, it is.
right.
That's missing. Now, for the story to move forward, it's not necessary. It really isn't necessary. But then we get into the question of, should we just take out everything that's kind of superficial?
Take Dobby himself. If you notice, Dobby doesn't appear in any of the movies, and they have Neville do the things Dobby did in the book. Does that change the course of the story? It doesn't. It doesn't. But it does change your perception. And it would be really cool for the fan who reads the books to know that it was Dobby.
Because what is it? Let's put it as if it were a math equation. Okay? Dobby is a value, Neville is a value, right? The result is the gillyweed. That's it. Give the gillyweed to Harry. The result is finding the room of requirement. That's it. Regardless of
Draco in the...
Half-Blood Prince. No matter which one you use here, the result will be the same in the movie. Got it? But it's cool when you know what really happened. When you see it, wow, Dobby is much more present. It's Dobby who tells them about the room of requirement. It's Dobby who gives the gillyweed. Because Dobby hears Moody talking, the fake Moody talking, you know? So it's cool. Because how do you know about certain things that happened in the story without reading the book?
Yeah.
You have to, either you read it or you consume it somewhere else, you know? Either you listen to the audiobook or you watch a content creator talk about it or you read it on some website, you know?
I saw an interview with the author where she says she kind of regrets putting that plot with Hermione and SPEW in the fourth book.
But then I see. That's what I'm saying.
Would it be important for the story?
No, I finished the 8 movies and didn't feel it or see how it would matter.
But I think it's part of making you love the characters more and discovering more about them. Because the trio themselves, they're different. The trio themselves, in terms of personality, they're more different in the books. So you finish and go, oh, I like Ron more. Oh, I like Hermione more. I think it's really unfair sometimes, for example, with Ron. Because Hermione gets 3 or 4 of his lines from the book, right? We have Hermione doing the whole thing of, oh, here you say, Hermione is more annoying in the books. Ron, he's more like this. Harry, he's more like that.
So you also change a bit the way you see the characters themselves.
Yes, for sure. And I think also the thing about SPAW is that it's not really necessary for the main story to move forward. It really doesn't. But it cuts out a huge part of Hermione's personality, yes.
That's right.
And then I think overall you do miss it. Why? Hermione, she's a target of Voldemort's regime. She's someone who is part of a marginalized minority, which are the Muggleborns, right? Like the elves. So her ability to recognize this much more clearly comes a lot from how her character is written. Of having this thing with SPEW. Sorry, Hermione, I know it's SPEW, but failure is much simpler. I think it's missing in the character's development, yes, you know?
Another thing that I think makes a huge difference is exactly this explanation about bloodline. I think it's a very important point in the story. And so, what is the term? Hagrid explaining. What is the term mudblood, muggleborn, the story, the plot of the Chamber of Secrets? It's very much about the basilisk attacking muggleborns. But I think the issue of purebloods, what is a half-blood wizard? I think the movie doesn't do that very well. Yeah.
It also explains it very superficially.
And it's a big part of the story.
Yeah, I think it's a perception that's much more valued, by those who have the ideology than anything else. But it's important to know, yes. And something I still think is really missing in Goblet of Fire? Yeah. The conversation between Dumbledore and Harry after everything that happened. When he says, "Oh, Voldemort took your blood." And there's the part where
He says it with his eyes, that look of triumph.
look of triumph. I remember that. Because in that moment, Dumbledore kills it. Dumbledore says, "Damn, he used your blood? Oh, okay. All right."
That's really cool.
That's when he realizes Harry might survive. When the time came. Because Voldemort uses it. And then we get to that first point you mentioned. People claim Harry survived because of the resurrection stone. Seriously.
And the fact that he died is actually something really simple to explain.
Or because he was the master of death, right? None of that. Harry doesn't die because Voldemort used Harry's blood, right? To come back, which had Lily's protection. And that's how he binds Harry to the earth. Because with Lily's protection, as long as he lived on Earth, Harry couldn't die. That's it, And then there's no...
But it's just that it's more beautiful. It's like this. You know why it is? Oh, Harry has that stone there. Then the movie has all the symbolism. The resurrection stone. Then the relatives appear. And we're sure that Harry comes back. You have no idea. Harry went through it. He had the invisibility cloak, the Elder Wand, and the resurrection stone.
He still had the wand. He owned it already, but it wasn't in his hand.
Yeah, but people think that the resurrection stone is what kept him from dying, But in the movies, at no point did they say, "Look, that's really not it."
No, that's not it.
Because Dumbledore, when Harry goes to the limbo and has that conversation with Dumbledore, Dumbledore never makes it clear at any point that he came back because of Voldemort's blood.
And in the book, that's the crucial explanation to understand why Harry didn't die.
But then Harry gets to the limbo and he sees Voldemort like that. There, Voldemort is all bloody and everything. Okay, the part of Voldemort's soul was destroyed. You might think that's what happened. The person here, I think that, but still.
And there are also people who think he didn't die because what died was the part of Voldemort's soul, which isn't necessarily true.
Because he kills with that Avada Kedavra. He kills like the Horcrux he unintentionally made from Harry.
They're different things. If Harry had taken an Avada Kedavra from Voldemort there, the Horcrux would have been destroyed. Harry would have died if Voldemort hadn't used Harry's blood. Now, with Voldemort, there are two separate things happening. The Horcrux being destroyed by Voldemort and Harry surviving because Voldemort used his blood. Got it? But why?
Was it necessary for Voldemort to have used Harry's blood to
Come back to life? No, he comes back because he's an idiot.
Does he make another mistake?
Yeah, he's so arrogant that he says, "No, I want Harry's blood. It could be from any enemy. I want Harry's blood because it's going to be more... It could be Dumbledore.
It could be the blood because...
It's going to be more meaningful if it's Harry's blood. And that way I can touch. And then the protection will be nullified." But he doesn't understand that he's doing something. He's desecrating something as sacred as a mother's sacrifice for her child.
Wow. That's why Dumbledore looks at Harry with a triumphant look. Because Voldemort made a mistake. He messed up right at that moment.
Man, Voldemort is his top enemy.
Wow, yeah, man. He's kind of a dumb villain.
Arrogant. He's not dumb. He's arrogant, man. He's arrogant, he's egotistical, he thinks no one is more powerful than him, that no one is smarter than him, that no one knows more than he does. So that makes him make blind decisions,
And we get to, I think, the coolest parts of this episode, which is actually talking about Voldemort as well.
His past.
Yeah, man, look, I think out of everything we're going to talk about here today, I think this part about Voldemort is the part that hits the hardest. Yes, Because, okay, Voldemort, he shows that anagram of his in Chamber of Secrets, which was Tom Servola Riddle, Tom Marvel Riddle, who became Lord Voldemort. And then we have who Voldemort was. The first time we see Voldemort as a child is in the memory that Dumbledore shows Harry from the orphanage. And we have that memory in the movie. We see that Voldemort had some things hidden there, some stuff in the closet. We see it, but other than that, my friend, that's where it ends.
In Half-Blood Prince, the book, there are a lot of cool memories. Wow, I think there are at least 5 or 6 memories that the movies didn't show, right?
You know what? Look how it is. In the movie, what does it make you think? That little box of objects. Dumbledore just says it's not allowed to steal at Hogwarts. He just says he was a little thief.
No. Yeah then.
No morals. A thief. Like, it's not something like, oh, he liked those items specifically belong to people that they belong to other kids he hurt. Man, Voldemort is a psychopath. He likes to collect trophies. That explains his obsession with the Horcruxes.
And he kills the kid's rabbit at the orphanage, you know? Just for the sake of killing. Yeah. So, yeah.
He did those things to the other kids who upset him in some way, right? So, like, yeah, and the whole construction of Voldemort's story, it's because you watch the movies, man. That's what gets me. You watch the movies. It's not like that. People might think, no, you're criticizing the movie because now there's going to be a series. That's not it. These are points I've always had about the movie. You watch the movie and you think Voldemort is just a villain. Oh, he's evil just because he's evil. He's evil simply because that's how he is. He wants to kill Harry because he's the villain. It doesn't show the character's development. It just shows him as a kid already seeming like he was a complete little psychopath. You know, that's it. It doesn't show the development. It doesn't show what happened before he was born. How that affected him. It doesn't show his mother giving birth to him at the orphanage, leaving him at the door and dying right after, you know? It doesn't show him being raised in the orphanage. It doesn't show that.
No, I hope that in about 6 years you guys will take this exact clip here, which is when the actors for Morphin, Merope, and Marvolo are announced. It's going to be a really big moment.
Because the Gaunt family, you just mentioned all these examples. And also the fact that Merope fell in love with a muggle, right? Who was Tom? Tom, Sir Tom Riddle. And that's when Voldemort's father was a muggle. Damn, you know? The guy, Voldemort, he changed his name from the moment he found out his father was a muggle. He didn't want to have the same name as his father.
Yeah, and the name was very common, right? That bothered him.
And the fact, right, that she made him fall in love using a love potion. Because if you think about it, I don't know if he wasn't conceived out of love, but it's symbolic. Yeah, it's still something, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, there's that theory, right? That he's incapable of loving.
Because he wasn't conceived, right? Yeah.
But then I think, why do I disagree with that theory? The main point of Harry Potter is that it's our choices that reveal who we really are. Of course, the environment will influence your choices, obviously. That doesn't mean it won't. But if Voldemort was doomed to be cruel and a villain since he was born, then it's not our choices that reveal who we are. We are already born that way. Yes, the way we are supposed to be. It's that well-known philosophical question. Is man born evil or is he corrupted? Did you understand? Yes. Like, I don't think Voldemort was born evil. I don't think so. I don't think he was pathologically incapable of love, because Dumbledore himself says that in the book. When they're having those lessons, Harry. Yeah, if Merope had raised Tom Riddle with love, Riddle, maybe there wouldn't be a Voldemort.
The fact that J.K. Rowling, the author, founded Lumos, which is an organization to prevent children from growing up in orphanages so they can grow up with their families. Do you think she wanted to imply that a bit in the story? That the fact Voldemort grew up in an orphanage without a real family, like you were saying. Imagine if he had been raised with love by Merope and everything. Do you think that's Maybe.
Maybe it could be a...
Because it was right around that time, Lumos was created right when we found out that Voldemort grew up in an orphanage, without a family support system. You know, everything.
So I think it might have something to do with that as well.
Because orphanages are often... They're environments with a lot of abuse towards children. It's not a good thing. It's a sad thing, man. Actually, that's actually something from my own life. No, I didn't grow up in an orphanage. But my parents worked in an orphanage for a long time. They ran campaigns to support orphanages. And I grew up going to an orphanage. I was even friends with the kids there. And I saw a lot of things like heavy stuff, you know? Really, I saw a lot of heavy things. Like stories that even today I have, like just remembering them makes me feel bad, you know? Damn. So orphanages have that. Of course, not to discredit institutions. Of course, there are very serious institutions that do things in a very serious way, but like everything in the world, there's a bad side too, right? So I think maybe it could be a detail.
Right? She wanted to bring that in, you know? Because she herself created an NGO about this, right? Yeah, that's it. About children in orphanages. But thinking about the memories that are shown to us in Half-Blood Prince, besides Voldemort's past, which I think we managed to summarize well, the fact that he was conceived because of a love potion.
There was the fact that his mother gave birth to him and died right after. So Voldemort was raised in that orphanage until it was time for him to go to Hogwarts.
After Hogwarts, after we have a Voldemort, right? Already at Hogwarts, right? Wanting to go after the Horcruxes. Talking to Voldemort about the matter, he was already making Horcruxes while still a student. And this is a part that, once again, I think is extremely important, okay? For the story, the Horcruxes. I don't think the movies explain it well.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, you see Dumbledore there in Half-Blood Prince, explaining it in a very shallow way. Yeah.
In the books, they talk about each of the Horcruxes. Yeah, right? About how each one was created, at what moment, Tom Riddle's diary.
He gives a recap, like, of everything that happened.
Wow, so how do they do it in the movies? Does Harry get those pains in his neck? Or does Harry just feel like, oh, I feel the Horcrux is at Hogwarts? Yeah, my buddy. Yeah.
He really does. He has the vis. But look how it is, right? This thing about the Horcrux at Hogwarts. In the book, that happens when Gringotts is robbed, right? Harry breaks into Gringotts, takes the cup, and then Voldemort, he thinks like, wow, they've discovered my secret. And then he automatically thinks about the Horcruxes and the hiding places, and Harry has this, they share it, right?
What happens when he steals from Gringotts?
When Harry steals from Gringotts,
He takes the cup there, right? Which cup? Okay.
Voldemort is informed. And then the goblins say, right, he only stole a little gold cup. And then Voldemort thinks about all the places where he hid the Horcruxes. Then he thinks about the locket. And then when he's really angry, Harry kind of taps into Voldemort's mind. Yes, yes, because of their connection there, a connection of soul and mind. And then that's when then Voldemort thinks about Hogwarts. And that's why Harry has this thing about Hogwarts, right? Yes, that's it. And then in the movie, he says, oh, I entered his mind. He's at Hogwarts. Yeah, but it's kind of...
In the movies, they replaced this moment with a no.
No. And another thing is that in the movies, there's something that does... This is something that bothers me in the movies. It seems like Harry feels when the Horcruxes are destroyed, and Voldemort does too. Voldemort doesn't feel it, so much so that he goes to the places to see if the Horcruxes were there. And he realizes that the locket wasn't there anymore, you know? And the ring wasn't there anymore either.
The locket was there. The fake one was in the cave, right? Voldemort thought that. Actually, another part too that, sorry, right?
Wow, that's really missing from the story. Regulus?
The story of Regulus. It's just that people might not question it, right? When they're watching the movie, they don't question things like, okay, who put that locket there? Or whose is it? Okay, R.A.B., fine.
It shows it there, but like, okay.
Oh, R.A.B., he's Sirius's brother.
Slughorn shows a little picture of him there, at the beginning of the Half-Blood Prince, in the picture frame, and that's it, right?
And this is a point that shows how, and it's important, that shows how Voldemort underestimated the things he considered inferior. And how this flaw in his plan is so important because it reveals things about the Horcruxes, right? It's a flaw in Voldemort's plan that's really important, you know? About the cave, about the locket, yes. Because here's the thing. The creature leaves there and tells about the Horcrux to Regulus. And then Regulus goes and steals the locket and discovers Voldemort's secret. So, like, it's a flaw in the plan, you know? It's a flaw in Voldemort's plan that just... How does Regulus even know about this? How did that happen?
Yeah, and the real locket was hidden there. Then it was sold to Mundungus. Then it goes to Umbridge. Mundungus steals it.
Right?
He steals it, right? Then it goes to Umbridge.
Right? Yes, Umbridge confiscates it and says it was a family heirloom from the Selwyn family.
And then it ends up there frozen, right?
No, it's the sword that's in the lake.
The sword? No, they had the locket the whole time, damn it.
That's true. Yeah, they keep the locket around their necks.
They take it from around Umbridge's neck. That's true. See? Snape's Patronus. Okay, it's explained there when they show Snape's memory.
It's explained.
It shows Snape's memory, where there was, okay, a Patronus guiding Harry to the sword. But like, right?
It makes it seem like when watching the movie, Snape conjures the Patronus, it leaves through the window, and at that moment it will reveal the sword. But come on, that happens. When the Patronus is there showing the sword, it actually happens much later, because Dumbledore was already dead by then.
You know, it's true, it's true.
And a lot of people get confused about that. Like, don't you get it?
And okay, I cast a Patronus there. Man, can you believe I've met a lot of fans who don't understand the after all this time always thing?
Like, because of the Patronus. Because you see Snape's Patronus, which is a doe, but at another moment it shows that Harry's mother's Patronus was also a doe.
Exactly.
So, what is that? What does that mean?
Lily. Dumbledore only says Lily.
You know, like, okay, he was in love with Harry's mother.
But the form of the Patronus really doesn't say anything. It really doesn't say anything.
It's kind of just the fact.
I think Harry asks, actually there in Limbo, Harry asks Dumbledore, Snape's Patronus is the same as my mother's. That's curious, isn't it? But Dumbledore says it's not curious at all.
Yeah, so it shows him talking about the Patronus.
You know? It's just that I don't find it curious, but what I do find curious is that some people didn't understand it. You get it?
Man, and another thing, now that we talked about Dumbledore, I think his whole story is really, really, really good, you know.
With Grindelwald and the whole story of Dumbledore's past. But, you know, that's the thing. Is it important for the end of the story? Well, maybe it's not, but I really think it is, you know? I would have really liked to see it because Dumbledore is a character. Well, he's the great mentor, right?
Dumbledore is the mentor who helps Harry throughout, always available to talk at the end of each year. The movie strongly shows the hero-mentor dynamic.
What I think regarding this Dumbledore thing is that he serves much more, narratively speaking, right? He serves much more to make Harry question his trust in Dumbledore. It's about everything. And the difficulty of that mission that Dumbledore left for him. I mean, it's a mission that was left, man, it's a life or death mission. And the person who left it for him, he didn't even really know. He thinks he knew, but there's this surprise of me.
I love how Deathly Hallows manages to bring this out much better in the books, which is this distrust that Harry himself has in Dumbledore, you know? Because we have the wedding scene in the movie and the old lady talks to him, right? Dumbledore doesn't...
Did you really know him?
Yeah, wow, it's really cool, but that's it.
Yeah.
You know? So, okay, fine. But in the book, it manages to show this much better because...
The book narrates Harry's thoughts, right? Yeah. So, like...
Yeah, because, wow, Dumbledore died, but, okay, he didn't leave me anything. He didn't explain anything to me. Yeah, and now, what am I supposed to do?
Let Dumbledore handle it himself.
That was basically it. It was kind of a figure it out yourself. So they're characters that I think that's how it is. It would add so much more to the story of the movies. I think the series has the potential to finally make the story cohesive.
I won't accept any cuts in the series.
I'm not saying...
I won't accept it. You hear that, right, HBO?
Man, it's a very personal matter for me. It's not that I won't accept it.
You're gonna get mad, but are you gonna criticize everything again?
Uh-huh.
I swear to you that I'll keep that in mind. It's not like, oh, I won't accept any cuts they make. No, but I won't accept the cuts. Sorry. The Gaunt family being cut again. Dumbledore's funeral. I won't accept that kind of thing being left out again. Because the story of the Marauders, if the third season ends without properly explaining the Marauders, damn it. Exactly.
You know, that would be really bad.
It's 8 hours. Prisoners of Azkaban is 2 hours and 14 minutes, so that's 5 hours and 45 minutes longer.
To show what they're going to show, you know? Like, okay, I already think I could be very wrong, okay? But I already think that based on their approach, they're going to cut out the fact that Snape is the referee there. I think the series will only feature one Quidditch match. I doubt they'll show the second one, playing Ravenclaw with Snape as referee.
Stop it, I think they will.
Because then Harry sees Snape heading toward the forest.
When he sees Snape talking to Quirrell there.
Yeah, I remember it was shown in the library in the movie. I really hope I'm wrong, okay? I just have this feeling and truly hope they don't cut it.
They're going to cut it, man. 8 hours, do you really think they're going to? Yeah.
That's why I say this. We get into something really complicated. Yes, honestly, I'll be upset if they cut it. Okay, the whole Quidditch match from Goblet of Fire, which gets cut. That's the biggest frustration for fans talking about the magic. It's about to start. Wow. Then the little point of light comes in for them, singing about crumb, 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 crumb. Man, that's so disappointing. So, I don't know. Show the match. Show the guy from Ireland. Crumb catching the snitch even with the score against him, you know? Yeah. I said, does it make a difference to the story? It doesn't.
But it's missing.
But thinking about it now, in all 8 movies, let me say something here. Thinking about all 8 movies, I can list them, okay? The prophecy as something that the movies, the matter of Harry's death as crucial. I think people who watch all 8 movies don't understand how Harry died or how he survived.
How he survived?
How he survived. It's not clear. If you say you understood, you'll say it's the destiny of death. I'm sure. Guys, confess to us here in the comments, please. Confess. Confess. You know what I like to imitate at home? Dursley. Walter saying justice. Wow. Still with the ice cream spoon, to make it even better. Admit it. What did you think about Harry coming back to life? Did you really? Who hasn't read the books? Because there are people who listen to us and watch us who have only seen the movies. Think about it. Were you wrong the whole time, or did you get it right?
Another thing I think is missing from the movies is the part about Hermione, how she erases her parents' memories.
That's really cool.
Like, in the movie, that's an example of something that's not shown in the book. In the book, Hermione just says, I altered my parents' memories. They believe they're Wendell and Monica Wilkins and they're living in Australia and they think they never had.
I saw you tweeting about that. And it's really cool because it was one of the only times the movie actually took something that had only been narrated in the book and showed it.
It's one of the best scenes in Deathly Hallows Part 1.
A great scene. Man, the soundtrack really makes it. It's a heavy scene. Yeah, Hermione disappeared.
But she used Obliviate, right?
But she used Obliviate. And then what happens next, you know? Like, people who only watch the movies don't know, man, that Hermione actually in the book, too, that was only revealed later, right? That Hermione simply, she finds them. In the book, she says, if everything goes well, I'll find them later. And she really does find them, right? She goes there and undoes the spell and all that. But in the movie, that's it. She erased their memory and that's the end of it.
Man, you mentioned parents just now. You made me remember a character that I think was also extremely poorly adapted.
Which was Neville. Anyone who watches all 8 movies thinks his parents died.
They had a fate worse than death, if you want to know.
Okay, fate then.
Which one?
Guys, the fate worse than death is that Neville's parents were tortured for not giving information to the Death Eaters until they went insane to the point they don't even remember who their own son is.
They still live in St. Mungo's to this day.
And he goes to visit them. We have a scene, a moment in Order of the Phoenix, when they go to visit Arthur Weasley at St. Mungo's after Nagini's attack, and they see Neville Longbottom there with his parents.
That's right. Neville even mentions it in Order of the Phoenix while they're in the room of wreck.
He's like, oh, that's way too condensed.
He's looking at the newspaper there. He's looking in the mirror and he says, oh, my parents, they were tortured by a...
Witch named Bellatrix Lestrange, right?
She tortured them, but they stayed silent.
Like, I'm really proud of them, you know?
That's it, but you don't know, like, where are they? Where are they now?
Oh, it's Sirius who says they had a fate worse than death, right?
Yeah, they had a fate worse than death, if you want to know. Yeah, I want to know. Yeah.
I want to know, actually, because it's a really cool story. Poor Neville. That's not great for him.
Really cool. Woohoo.
Yeah, no, but it's a story that, for me, shows a lot of development and how important the First Wizarding War was, the founding of the Order of the Phoenix, why they needed to create the Order of the Phoenix, right?
And it's this kind of thing that's a development that
And also there in Order of the Phoenix, Tiago, I really miss the campaign by Fudge, the Daily Prophet, and Umbridge. Because, like, it's a main focus of the story. And it's in the movies, but I think at some points it's really missed. In the movie, it doesn't say who sent the Dementors to attack Harry.
Yeah.
it doesn't say. That's true.
In the movies, they don't say who did it. If you only watch them, you won't know Umbridge sent the Dementors. You get it? Like, it doesn't say.
But now it's a genuine question for you. Umbridge, she sends the Dementors because she's not really on Voldemort's side, in this case.
No, does she send them on her own? Does she send them because she wants Harry to get expelled to kind of get him out of the picture, you know?
That's all. Okay.
All right, to add to Fudge's narrative.
I see. So she's working with Fudge there, right? No.
Fudge, I don't know if Fudge, I think Fudge doesn't know about the Dementors. It's her who kind of, man.
That's crazy, right? Man, Order of the Phoenix, you see it's a chapter I never forgot. That's the one about career advice, right? Which is about the profession they want for the future. It gives you that feeling of, what am I going to do after Hogwarts, right? And Harry says he wants to be an Auror. And then Minerva says to him, look, you need to improve your grades in this subject, in that subject, if you want to be an Auror. And then, man, the best scene in the history of the books.
Umbridge is there taking notes while Harry is having his career counseling, right? And then they start arguing. And then Minerva.
Umbridge says Potter can't be an Auror with his record and all that. He has several transgressions, right? And grades.
And then Minerva says, I will make Potter become an Auror.
Even if it's the last thing I do.
Wow, seriously, man, it's really good. It's really good. It's good. So that's the kind of thing. That's why we say it. Do you need to read the books to call yourself or say you're a Harry Potter fan? You don't have to.
But it would be really cool if you guys, now with the series, if you still don't want to read the books, the series will show a part of it, right?
Exactly. And guys, look, honestly, I'm not the kind of person who's prejudiced. There are people who say that audiobooks aren't real books, right? No, you're not reading, you're listening. In fact, you're not reading, but you're still consuming the media. Yes. I don't think that, look, man, consume media in whatever way is most comfortable for you. Honestly, do you like to read? Great, Raid, you don't like to read? Man, I advise you to at least give it a chance because reading is really good and adds a lot to our lives. Now, man, if you have trouble reading, you start, you get lost, you skip a line. I think it's something where you can use the audiobook to follow along, you know? And if you've really tried and you still don't want to listen to the audiobook because the story is there being told, right? Anyway, but
Speaking of what you just said, I really struggle with reading books.
But I think the audiobook can help me because I can work sometimes while listening to things, you know?
It's different from picking up a book. I just can't do it. My mind is corrupted by dopamine, man.
There's no use, man. I just can't do it. I get distracted. I can't stay focused. I already have a really hard time concentrating. So, reading is a really hard task for me. But it's a habit I've always loved.
But, it's complicated, right? When you're on medication.
let's leave and see the psychiatrist so I can feel calm.
But it's hard, man. Because I like it. You know when you like something, but you just can't do it? The only thing I can spend hours and hours doing is playing video games, you know? It's weird, right?
No, to each their own.
Yeah.
Man, it's normal. I like to read. I don't read as often as I'd like. Because I read a lot while I'm working. To write the scripts, I read a lot. Man, it's not that I don't like to read. I read Prisoner of Azkaban the day before yesterday. The whole thing, you know? to write a script. It's not like, oh, just reading a little part. No, it's the whole thing. The whole thing. And then, man, I don't read other things. I end up not being able to read other things because when I stop working, my mind is tired. I've already read a lot, So I go distract myself with something else.
Guys, my girlfriend Mari Ramos, she's one of the biggest readers I've ever seen in my life. Mari is always reading a book, either on the Kindle or a physical book.
Man, I say, my God, how do you manage to be reading all the time, man? On the bus, I say, damn, that's impressive,
Yeah, but I was like that too. When I used to work away from home and took public transportation, I read a lot too. I used to read on the bus. Man, it would make me zone out. It was cool.
No, but that's it. I think one conclusion we can take from today's episode is what I was just saying.
Don't think you're not a fan just because you haven't read the books, okay? That's it. But what we recommend is that you read them to have a complete experience.
And if you still don't want that complete experience, wait for the HBO series that's coming at the beginning of 2027.
So you can see several possibilities that were told in the books, but that will now be shown.
Nothing can measure your love for a work. No one can measure that. Not reading it doesn't make you less of a fan. Your knowledge may not be complete, but it also doesn't mean that if someone hasn't read it, they will necessarily have incomplete knowledge. Because if they consume it in other ways, they know what's going on,
Guys, leave down here in the comments what you discovered from today's episode. Share your story. Comment if you've only seen the movies. Comment if you don't really remember the books that well anymore. If it's been a while since you read them, but leave your comment telling your story.
If it's been a while since you read it.
Yeah, for those who have already read it, man.
If you haven't read it recently, read it.
That's true. That's it, folks. Let's go to our shout-out moment here. The QR code is always on the screen for you to send your message. And it was a lot of fun making this episode today. So, shout-out moment. Let's go.
Rafa Luis.
Starting our shout-out moment here with someone who has a very funny name. The person who sent this question is Gemik Murta. Gemik Murta said she's been watching both of you since the beginning, for about 10 years now. Loving the podcast. What scene do you most want to see in the series?
It's a huge list. Wow. It's a huge list. But I think the main one is Dumbledore's funeral. That's the main one.
And I'll go with Voldemort's memories in the Half-Blood Prince to match today's episode.
All right, Marcela Almeida, I'm a voice actress.
Look at that.
And my dream is to dub anything from the series and to talk with you guys someday. Marcela, I wish you a lot of success in your voice acting career. I wish you lots of luck and hope you achieve your dream of being in the Harry Potter series, and it will be a pleasure to have a chat with you here. All right?
Rafa Zelufano sent this in. Congratulations on the podcast. Do you know where I can read the old Pottermore articles?
Man, on the official Harry Potter website, there are archives from J.K. Rowling and the texts are there. Not all of them are there, okay? Some texts really aren't available anymore. Or excerpts from some texts. But I think most of them are there, yes. If you can't find them, there are some archive sites from websites that no longer exist. I think you can find it on Web Archive, Anna Maria Plins. Ginny is said to be strong and striking, but not even in the books did I feel that chemistry with Harry. Kisses, Anna. Kisses. I think that actually, Jean, this comparison, this idea of Ginny being strong and different in the books comes from comparing her to the movie version, right? Really, in the book, she does have that difference, but it's not like, wow, oh my God, what an amazing character, She's a much more active character. She's a character who, well, she really does what she wants to do. She's a very good Quidditch player. She has more remarkable moments, more prominent actions than in the movie. So that's the comparison.
Also, if you compare Ginny from the book with the one from the movie, you don't need much for the book version to be better, right? And now, wrapping up our nitpicky moment of the day, Joanna Kimura sent this in. Do you think the series will develop James and Lillian's story in more depth?
I hope so.
I really hope so too. I saw that the beginning of Sorcerer's Stone was going to be different, you know? Yeah. The movie would have a more in-depth flashback of the
Yes.
about Halloween and all that. Yes, yes. And it would already show Voldemort's attack. Everything, right? Something that the series filmed, right? Yeah. Let's see. Maybe they changed their minds and this is now the series opener. I still think they'll develop it.
Yeah, I would really like them to go deeper, not just focus on the moment of the attack, you know? I think their whole lives, and I think there will be room for that in the flashback.
You know, I think that would be really cool. At certain moments, out of nowhere, there could be a flashback to when James and Lillian were taking care of Harry when he was 1 year old. The series could do that, and I really think it's going to happen.
Man, even in the first episode,
In the first season,
if you stop to think about it, I don't know if it would be a format that would fit very well because too many flashbacks can sometimes get a bit boring. But, for example, This Is Us in Paradise Pora, the way they always show it, I think that's really cool.
I think it's cool because it grabs your attention. It's not a long flashback. It's the kind of flashback that makes you go, man, mind blown right now.
You need to understand that.
Man, that's great, okay? I hope the series happens, but that's it, guys. Comment below what you thought of today's episode.
whether it was about reading the books or not. And I'll see you in the next episode, okay?
Thanks. Kaka will be here next time.
That's right, in the next one. Because this guy, I know who I talked to here today. And I'll see you in the next one. Sessão Reservada, guys. We hope for good news from the HBO series. Woohoo!
Thanks.